Hey there YouTubers. In this video I'm going to talk about what happened to me when I switched from a flat Apple keyboard to a mechanical keyboard. In this case, the Keychron K2. Welcome to DidgieTalks. So in 2009 I bought my first iMac 27-inch, and with it obviously you get the flat Apple keyboard and Magic Mouse. So at the time I actually don't recall thinking much about moving from the keyboards I was using at work or on laptops to the Apple setup. So I think I'd been using laptops mostly anyway at that point. So going to a flat keyboard really didn't feel very different, didn't actually think about it a great deal. However, I recently bought my son a Ducky 1.2. So we got it out of the box, we hooked it up to his gaming setup, and something odd happened. While we were putting it together and using it, I started to feel different about using a keyboard. I know that sounds really odd, but with a mechanical keyboard, you get something different. You get feedback. It feels reassuring. It's obviously very tactile. You get that really clicky sound. And whilst I hadn't really thought about it up until that point, it gave me a sense that I wasn't getting from using a normal Apple keyboard. Just didn't really think about using a keyboard normally, but in this case, playing with the Ducky 1.2, I was getting something back. I was getting some feedback and some tactile, almost emotional response to using a keyboard which I hadn't had for years. So it got me thinking, why don't I get myself a mechanical keyboard for my Mac setup? So I recently moved from my iMac to a 16-inch MacBook Pro. So still using the flat keyboard on the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So not the old broken one, but the new Apple keyboard that they fixed. So again, it really wasn't much of a move going from the iMac to the MacBook Pro. So anyway, I started looking around and thinking what mechanical keyboard would be good for an Apple setup. And one that kept cropping up was the Keychron K2. So the Keychron K2 is a Mac specific keyboard. So what I mean by that is when it comes out of the box, you have a Mac OS switch on it, which means it will engage directly with a Mac wirelessly. And you have the standard Mac keys for things like screen brightness, for volume, and the Apple specific keys for option and so on. That's obviously great if you're a Mac user, you can go straight to it. If you're a PC user, however, that's not a problem either, because there's the switch on the side, you can switch to a Windows setup, and you can change the Apple specific keys on the bottom to be Windows specific. Another thing the Keychron K2 has got is an RGB setup. Now, I'm not really a massive fan of bling for keyboards and games and so on, he says with blue lights coming out of his desk, but actually I tend to keep things on single colours and just use them for a little bit of ambience and brightness. So yeah, so the keyboard comes with a whole range of RGB settings. I'll flick through them now, show you what they are. So I tend to stick with solid colours, usually the teal or the white. Occasionally I'll play with the RGB, but really just for a bit of fun. I don't tend to use RGB for anything normally, so yeah, I just tend to stick to one colour. So just going through the other things that you get on this keyboard, as I said, you get a panel on the side of the keyboard which gives you your operating system switch between OS and Windows. You also get in there a switch to take you from connected, so you can connect it directly via USB. You get a USB-C on the keyboard and a USB-A on the other end, so you can plug that into whatever you want. Or you switch to wireless where you can switch between 3 different devices. So you can press function and one of the number keys on the top left hand corner, and you can switch between 3 different wireless connections. That can be an Apple, that can be an iPad, and it can be a PC. So it's really useful for that. So when you plug your USB-C cable in and into a USB socket on the other end, it will charge the keyboard and it will light up to tell you it's charging. I think it also flashes when the battery is getting low, but because of where the light is placed on the side of the keyboard, I for one haven't ever noticed it flashing, and a few times I've run out of battery. So with RGB switched on, although it does go into sleep mode after about 10 minutes to save the battery, which sometimes can be a bit annoying because if you go away from it for a bit, you have to press the keys, wait for it to light up. Before you get another connection, you can keep typing, but at least it doesn't wear the battery out too fast. You normally get around about 4 or 5 days of good usage when you're using RGB, and you get a lot more if you switch RGB off. The other thing I would comment on is having the power cable or the connector cable on the side of the keyboard. So the one that comes in the box does have a right angle, which makes it nice and easy and nice and tidy. But I personally think it probably would have been better seated on the back of the keyboard. And I think it would have been better if they put an indicator light somewhere near the top of the keyboard so you can see when the battery was running low with a flashing. Or maybe they could have just made the RGB keys flash when the battery was running low to remind you to plug it in. Just to save that awkward moment when you're in the middle of something and suddenly the keyboard dies. Now, something else which is immediately obvious when you get a mechanical keyboard is because of the motion of the keys, the longer travel for a key press, then they're just naturally higher. This keyboard is quite high, does sit quite high, like most mechanical keyboards, a lot higher than the flat Apple keyboard. So the other thing I had to do is go out and buy myself quite a deep wrist rest so that my hands were nicely positioned to use this much higher keyboard. There are feet on the back which give you a different height, so you can tilt it a bit more. I personally have it flat with a high wrist rest, and that works perfectly for me. So I've had this keyboard now for a number of months, and I have to say I love using the keyboard. I really like that sound, that tactile feel. This one came with Gateron Brown switches. I'll show you what that sounds like. And as I said earlier on, that's one of the things that gives you some real feedback from this keyboard. I love using this keyboard. I will never go back to flat keyboards now. There is one major problem I've found with owning this Keychron K2, and it's a big one. Now that I've moved to mechanical keyboards, I find myself looking at all the other mechanical keyboards that are available and thinking to myself, which mechanical keyboard can I get next? Or shall I build a mechanical keyboard and make it custom? And which switches shall I use? And do I need to take them apart and lube them? So I've got a whole new big deal of tech going on now, all around mechanical keyboards, which has been out of my life since 2009. So apart from that one big problem of me now being hooked on mechanical keyboards, I love this keyboard. I would absolutely recommend anybody moving from a flat keyboard to a mechanical keyboard to get the Keychron K2. Or even if you're just looking to change your mechanical keyboard to something else, the Keychron K2 is an excellent choice. I got my keyboard from the keyboard company. I'll put a link in the description below. But that's it. That was my journey from a flat keyboard to a mechanical keyboard, and yeah, well, I'm hooked. Thanks for watching. I hope that was helpful. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share and all the usual stuff. Take care and stay safe.